Hi friends, welcome back. I don't know what it is with this particular painting, but I just can't seem to decide how I want it to go or what I want it to look like. At this point, I've really thrown out any and all reference photos, and we're just playing, and it's turning into something that I think is pretty cool. So, yeah, sit back, relax, and watch me generate kind of pretty chaos. Now, if you'll recall, last time I had ended by putting a wash of paint down on this whole green mountain section. Unfortunately, I came back to it about 2 days later. I looked at it and I thought to myself, I don't like how this looks. I don't like how any of this looks. And as quickly became the theme of this painting, I just started slapping more oil pastels on it. So here in this first section, I am taking a few different shades of blue, and then I'll add some teal and some greens. And I really don't know what my original idea was when I started slapping more pastels on this. I say slapping. I was being deliberate and intentional in my placement of color. But after the amount of stuff I had already put on this canvas, it did really start to feel like I was just slapping more stuff down onto this thing and hoping that it made something interesting or good. So at this point, I don't know really what I was hoping to get. I just didn't like what I had. And honestly, the only thing I could think of that might salvage the situation was more pastels. And again, at this point, I had been really enjoying how the oil pastels were coming across on this painting. It's really a lot more pastel than it is paint. And there was just something about that I was connecting with it in a way that I hadn't connected with pastels before. And I know I've painted with gouache and I've done accents of oil pastels for I think over a year now, but I hadn't ever done a really big piece like this where there was a lot of the oil pastel, and I really hadn't explored the extent of what I could do and what shapes I could create with the oil pastels. And even after everything I've done on this canvas, by the end of this thing, I still feel like there's a lot that I can learn with them. It's very much a medium that I'm going to want to have to get more of and get more practice with, because this particular piece was an absolute ton of fun. And as you can see, it's just turning into a lot of pastel. So like I said, I started out with blues, and I figured my lighting was a lot cooler in the upper section of this canvas, so it made sense to go in with cooler colors and just see if I could make something more interesting. My camera did die for a little bit there, but so I added some purples, I added a little bit of brown, I added just a touch of red, and I really didn't think I was going to like how the red looked, and once I put it in, it just looked really cool, and it added a nice pop of vibrancy to this that I think it needed it. So then I go in with my trusty little smudge stick, and I think I ended up spending a couple days just going back and forth between more colors of oil pastel and more smudge sticking, just trying to get this section of the canvas, these like rolling hills here, to look exactly how I wanted them. And as we've talked about in previous videos, like this one, I did have a reference photo when I started out, and by this point I'd completely thrown that reference photo out the window. I had a friend that I was sharing this with, and I had shown her the reference photo, and she was like, oh, you have to show me how that turns out. And then when I started to really veer away from it, I was like, well, it's not going to look anything like that. But I love how this is turning out. And I know, obviously, I say that about all of my pieces, but this one's a little different. And I think it's legitimately just because of the sheer amount of oil pastel and honestly just the amount of time that I spent playing with it and letting myself play with it. And you remember a couple years back, I started a painting and it got kind of scary, and I turned it to face the wall, and I didn't pick it up until I think it was late last year. I picked it up again and I turned it into something different, which turned out beautifully, and I love the way it turned out. But I didn't want this painting to be like that one, where all of my ideas were so terrifying to me that I was just going to have to stop and turn it to face the wall and not think about it for a while and come back to it in a year or 2 years and make something totally different with it. I didn't want that to happen. So when I did get a little, I did this, and I flipped the painting over and I just played with the clouds a little bit more, and I just kind of played with color and value and shapes, and I let myself have fun. I let myself play, and I did not keep myself attached to any one reference photo, or really any reference photo at all, once I threw the original out the window. I just let myself have fun and explore what this medium could do. Because again, I have played with oil pastels a lot, but it's not a medium that I am anywhere near as familiar with as I am with gouache. So while I can sit down and make something with gouache, and I know exactly what it's going to do, and I know how all of the paint is going to behave and how all my brushes are going to behave with the paints, when it comes to oil pastels, I have an inkling of what it can do. I have seen some of the artwork that people will do with pastels, and it is so far beyond what I can do with oil pastels at this point, that just allowing myself to sit down and play and get expressive and creative with colors and shapes and kind of loose flowing details, it turned this painting into something really special for me. And you're not going to see the end of it in this video. We do have one more. It is done as of me recording this voiceover, but you'll see it in a few weeks. And I think there's something special about letting yourself just play and have fun and learn a little bit more of the ins and outs of a medium that you are working with. So it was a challenge to do all of these things, and it was really, really fun. And I think doing this painting the way that I did it is really opening my mind up to some different ideas for things that I can do with future artworks. Because especially once you get a particular style in mind and you get to where you have certain things that you like painting and certain things that are really inspirational to you, you can get where you only paint those things and you only paint them that way. And I don't want to get myself into a rut, and I want to be able to have different methods of painting and different styles in the same style, if that makes sense. So I have I have this love of mountains and hills and sunsets and sunrises, and I love getting to paint those, but I want to be able to paint them in different ways, and just letting myself take the time with this painting to really play with it and really explore a different method and a different texture of painting. Because, again, I normally would do this with gouache, which is ironically what I'm painting with at this point in the video. I would normally do all of this with gouache, and I would get a very different level of detail. And I was just really enjoying what I came up with here with the oil pastels. I think it just turned out absolutely beautifully. And yeah, so here in this section, I am going back in with gouache. The paint color is called Cypress, and I've thinned it out pretty far. And I am just using this to mark for myself where the foreground is going to start. So the multicolored bluey purpley hill behind this that I've mostly done at this point with the oil pastel, that'll be the midground. And then I'm coming in with Cypress. Here I'm just doing a really light wash, and on top of this is where I will do my slightly finer detail stuff. And again, this is very similar to the way that I do my usual paintings, where I don't focus on oil pastels, I focus on gouache. I'm trying to play with how exactly I can utilize both of these mediums to their fullest potential while using them both on the same canvas. Because I think there's a lot of people who work with one or the other, but I haven't seen a ton of artists who work with both together super frequently, or if they do, they'll do a full underpainting in gouache and then they'll only do the oil pastels on top. So I'm having a lot of fun just playing with how to interplay the two of these mediums that can work together, but in a lot of ways, like we've talked about in the previous video, they can honestly fight each other because one is acrylics and one is oils. So here I am starting on the foreground. I have sprayed workable fixative on the pastels that are in the midground to make sure that those won't get super smudgy while I'm working. And I am starting on the foreground. And at this point in the painting, I really didn't know what exactly I wanted for the foreground. So I figured that I would start by just putting in some bushes, because that seemed like a simple place to start. That seemed kind of like the correct place to start. I know in a lot of my paintings I would put like a tree, but with using the oil pastels, it didn't feel like a thing that I could do without really messing with the work that I had already done in the midground, or covering up something that I really didn't want to cover up. So I had to think about how to keep the foreground relatively low on the canvas, how to get the level of detail that I wanted, and how to build my way up toward the very front of the canvas, because I don't like when the very bottom of the canvas is the thing that draws all of your attention, but I also want it to have enough detail on the whole thing that it doesn't feel weird. Like, it feels like the correct amount of detail everywhere. So obviously you try to build up detail and get more detail as you get closer to the front of the canvas. I mean, it depends on where you're putting your focus on the painting, but for this style, that's what I was going for. And so I'm still trying to go with oil pastels. So it's kind of a game of working with oil pastels. How far can I push this to get the level of detail that I want without this looking too similar to the midground, and without it getting too far blended, because again, this is oil pastel, not paint. So I'm not getting that same level of crisp detail that I would get if I was using paint. I think that what I came up with ends up working really well, but for a little bit it does just kind of look like a blobby mess. And I think honestly it'll be in the next video that it really comes together, because as you're about to see, I'm about to stop for a few days because you know, life gets busy. And I think that's another thing that this painting has really let me do, is while I'm having fun with everything, I can still take the time, take a break, take a few days off, and do other life stuff. I can work on writing, I can work on getting ready for my trip, and I can come back to this and really just let myself play and not have to think about having a specific reference photo that I'm trying to match or a style that I'm trying to purely stick to. So this has been a really fun piece to work on. It is super different than anything that I could have imagined that it would turn into, but I'm really having so much fun with this one, and I cannot wait to show you guys the next video. That will be in, just about a month. I'm so sorry to make you guys wait, but thank you so much for watching to the end of this video. Please let me know what you think of this one so far, and I'll see you in a couple weeks with another vlog. That sounds like fun. Thanks, guys. Bye. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more chill videos with art.